Hi, welcome to New Testament Survey 2. I'm Dr. Ray Umphrey, and I'll be your professor for this course. I'm glad you're here. We're going to take a deep dive into the epistles, Romans through Revelation. We're going to cover these epistles, and we're going to look at their content. We're going to look at the world behind them, and we're going to look at some tools to help us analyze what they say. The epistles are different than the Gospels or Acts. Whereas the Gospels and Acts tell stories about Jesus and about the church, the epistles are written documents that have some story elements. The book of Revelation certainly has some story elements, but for the most part are didactic material, meant to teach, meant to instruct, reading often like sermons, or as what they really are, letters. So in order to properly understand them, we need a good framework for what they are and how they operate. So just to introduce myself, I'm Ray Umphrey. I am a pastor and a professor. And since I live in both worlds, I really like to unite both worlds. I like to see deep, serious scholarship intersect with the life of the church and the work of ministry. So what I want this class to do for you is to help you bridge that gap as well. Now, as a professor, I earned my PhD and my Master of Divinity from the Southern Baptist Theological Seminary. So I really care about the New Testament. I care about Greek, and I care about looking at language and understanding how it works, and then being able to preach and teach that to a modern audience. As a pastor, I'm the lead pastor at Pillar Church here in Columbus, Ohio. I've been at this church for 9 years at this point. Combined pastoral experience, I have pastored for 17 years. I've also served in denominational roles and lay preaching and other capacities. I'm married to Katrina, and we have one beautiful daughter. She's 2 years old right now. Her name is Zelda. Things that I like to play bluegrass music when I get the chance. I'm a bit of a Star Wars nerd. When I do watch sports, I support the Tennessee Volunteers, and one of my favorite places to be on earth is anywhere with a beautiful view of the ocean and God's creation by the sea. I also write actively on Substack, so if you'd like to follow me there, I share a lot of insights that you'll get in this course and a lot of other supplementary materials as well. And my goal for this course, for New Testament Survey 2, is that you will become a more careful reader of Scripture, a clearer thinker, and a more faithful servant of Jesus Christ. So the way I approach teaching the New Testament, and specifically teaching Romans through Revelation in this class, is number one is the content. We want to know what it says. And so you're going to be reading the entire New Testament from Romans to Revelation. Beyond that, you have a textbook called The Cradle, the Cross, and the Crown. But then we're also going to look deeply at the background of these letters. And I've chosen a book that we'll talk about in a moment that actually does a really good job of immersing you in the world at the time of Paul. And I think you're going to enjoy that. And the goal of that book is so that you actually sort of kind of get your head around this is how the world worked. This is how people would have been when they were reading these letters. And the third component is analysis. I don't want you to just know the content and know background content. I want to teach you how to read these letters well. So the three books are the New Testament, Romans through Revelation. No substitute for that. The Cradle, the Cross, and the Crown, that is your main textbook to give you sort of what I call the meat and potatoes information of the class. And then the other book you have is A Week in the Life of a Greco-Roman Woman by Holly Beers. This is a fantastic little book. It's in a series called A Week in the Life, and each one of them focuses on a different part of the biblical world. And as you read that story, it's a historical fiction, but it pulls together archaeological data, historical data, so that as you're walking through this story, it's actually giving you what life would have looked like for a woman living in this period. Now, we're going to get content, we're going to get background, and we're going to learn how to analyze Scripture. And we're going to use something that I've sort of created. I call it Textflow. I'm drawing from something called discourse analysis, which is, it's a scholarly term basically for how we analyze texts and how they work. What I'm going to give you are some what I think are some very approachable, accessible tools to helping you follow the flow of the text or trace the argument of the text in these letters and in these writings. So every week I'm going to give you something that will probably be new to you, or at least a new way of looking at the scripture, looking at the text. And so every week you're going to have a discourse tracing assignment. Each week it's going to stack, and you're going to learn a skill one week and you're going to build on it the next week all the way to the end of the course. And hopefully you'll be able to use all of those skills when you write your paper. And then you're going to follow a prompt each week. You're going to have a specific prompt that is given in the course page. And that prompt is going to give you the instructions for what you are to do for that assignment that week. It's going to give you very, very specific instructions and show you how to do it and to teach you what you're looking for. And each assignment, each weekly assignment will be 2 pages. The first page will be actual annotated scripture. You're going to take the scripture passage that you're given and you're going to mark it up. And I've got a document that shows you some ways to do that. And so you're going to mark it up. Either you can do it handwritten, you can do it on a tablet, or you can do it in Word or another word processor, as long as you can show me your work. And you're going to annotate that passage according to what I'm asking for. So that's going to be a visual component. That's page 1. The second page is going to be written, and you're going to respond in written form to the prompt that I've given you, and you're going to draw on the annotation that you've done. So this assignment is going to consist of 1 page of an annotation of the scripture passage according to the prompt, and then a written response to the prompt. You're going to do 7 of these, and they're going to train you. By the end of the course, you're going to have a toolkit for analyzing these New Testament letters. That's 1 of 4 assignments. So, number 1, reading. You can't substitute anything for reading. That's the bedrock of the class. That's where you're going to get the information. Obviously, you need to read the Bible, Romans through Revelation. You need to read chapters 9 through 20 of the Cradle, the Cross, and the Crown. Check the course schedule. There's some parts of that I don't require you to read. So if you go in there and look specifically at what I'm asking you to read, you'll be happy you did. And then you're going to read the week in the life of a Greco-Roman woman in its entirety by the end of the course. Discussion forums. Every week you're going to have a discussion forum where you post and respond to 2 of your classmates. And then the discourse tracings. You're going to have those, and you're going to follow this Textflow method, and you're going to respond to weekly prompts for these 2-page assignments. And you're going to turn those in every week until the final week when your paper is due. So your exegetical paper, the goal is that you're drawing on everything you've learned in the course: content, background, analytics, and you're putting together a paper. And what I'm going to be looking for is I'm going to be looking for the things that you've been learning. Okay, so what I want you to do is draw on what you've learned and put that in the paper. So that being said, all that remains is to dive into the course. So you're going to want to go ahead and get into the course. You're going to want to read the syllabus if you haven't already. Familiarize yourself with that. Specifically, I would look at the course schedule and the reading schedule so you know what you're accountable for. Keep an eye on the announcements. I usually use course announcements to push out new information, and I will usually use those to put out the prompts each week. So you're going to want to keep an eye out for those. You do have something coming up in week 1. I want you to go ahead and select your paper passage. So I've uploaded a list. Look at that list, go over it, and then select your passage that you're going to write your paper on by the end of this week. And you're going to want to go ahead and start working on your first discourse tracing. I'm glad you're here. I'm looking forward to this class. I'm very passionate about the New Testament, about reading it well, and I'm hoping that this is a transformative experience to you. I know you're going to be learning some new things. If you have any questions about the course or any of the assignments, please reach out to me. You have my email, and I want to see you succeed and become a more faithful student of Scripture.